Hi everyone, welcome to today's educational webinar brought to you by Bolide Technology Group. In this webinar, we'll be going over the Angelo HD Central Management Software. Here with me is Mike Lugo, our technical support engineer. Hey Mike.
Hey Nancy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And also with us is our sales manager, Kenneth Miguel. Hey Ken.
Hey Nancy, hey everybody. It's a lovely day here in California. Welcome to today's webinar.
And at the end of the webinar, we're going to be answering questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box, and we'll be answering them as we go through the webinar. So feel free and ask anything you'd like. Go ahead, Ken.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Again, welcome everybody to today's webinar. In this webinar, we will be going over a few topics that are DVR-centric. First, we'll be doing an introduction to Bolide's new Angelo HD DVR series. We're going over what is CMS, what are the benefits of using the DVR CMS software. We're going to go over in detail every menu in the CMS software, as well as every configuration and settings that you can change to access features and benefits to using our new DVRs. Okay, first off, Angelo HD. These are Bolide's new high-definition digital video recorders. These recorders support our Angelo HD HD cameras, and they're backwards compatible with any traditional analog cameras. This is perfect for replacing an older system with a new HD model while still using the old cameras. At the same time, it's a great way to migrate customers into HD by slowly phasing out their DVRs and then adding HD cameras later on. The Angelo HD comes in two resolution series. First off, here you see the 720p series. This series comes in a 4, 8, and 16 channel models. A couple of notable features is it records 720p, of course, at 50 frames per second. It's got alarm inputs and outputs. Of course, you've got your HDMI and VGA video outputs. And a couple of things we added to our new DVRs. Number one is the new eSATA port. You can use an eSATA drive to back up large amounts of files from this DVR model. You also have an IR extender built in. So let's say the end user wants to stash a DVR away in a closet and still be able to use the remote control to access a DVR. You can do so by using an IR extender. We actually have a 50-foot cable available for purchase. Next up, of course, is our full HD model. We have the Angelo HD DVR in the 1080p model. Notable features, it records at 1080p resolution. This DVR also supports 720. They're compatible with our 720p cameras. And an added feature which makes this a tri-beer unit is it also supports HD TVI cameras. Of course, you have your alarm in and out. You have your same eSATA port, IR extender. This new DVR has a new soft touch button layout. It's a real nice unit. It's got a brand new streamlined, very easy to use GUI interface. And of course, both these DVR models have the CMS software included, which we'll be going over in today's webinar. One thing I'd like to mention is a feature that all of our customers love is Bolide QuickConnect. Okay, so what is QuickConnect? QuickConnect is the easiest way that you can set up DVRs for remote viewing. All you have to do is scan the QR code on the DVR unit, enter your app, and you're viewing your DVRs. It's automatic port forwarding. Mike, can you elaborate Bolide QuickConnect?
Sure. So what we did is we took the P2P technology and we made it our own. We put in some features that enable the DVR to have no port forwarding. It's very simple. You download the app, you scan the QR code on the top of the DVR, and you're ready to stream. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. As you can see, the picture on the top of the DVR, the QR code, and below it is the actual device ID.
Let's talk about the essential management software. What are the benefits of using the CMS software? Number one, you have the ability to view your DVR from a remote location. Another benefit, you can control settings of your DVRs from a remote location. Number three, you have the ability to view multiple DVRs from different locations. And you have the ability to record remote DVRs into a local drive from a remote location. So let's jump into our essential management software. First off, when you install the software that comes with DVRs, it will take you to the wizard.
And this is a pretty cool feature. Just like our new DVRs, it also has a wizard. The wizard will basically take you through every setting that you need to connect the DVR to the device. As you can see here, step 2 of the wizard, it has an add device. In this menu, it's going to take you through each option that you will need to fill to add the device. Number 1, the device name. That can be any name you want. That's for your records to help you distinguish what DVR is what. The second one is the IP ID. For Mac users, you have to use the IP. We're still in the process of getting the ID working with the Mac and the software. But for the most part, the device ID will be what you'll be using, and you can see the QR code to the right of the arrow. By default, port 9000 is always going to be what we use. Admin will always be the default username and no passwords. And channels will fill in once you connect that information.
So go back to that slide, Mike. You're looking at the QR code or the QR codes scanner.
Yeah.
So what you see on the bottom is the device ID. So when you're using a computer, you're not necessarily scanning the QR code. However, you are entering the device ID, which again bypasses the procedure of port forwarding. Okay, so again, there's no need to port forward with these DVRs.
Correct. And Ken brought up a pretty important thing is that obviously you don't have a scanner in your computer, so you can't scan the QR code. There is the letters and numbers at the bottom of the code. You manually input that information. So here, after you add the device, it needs to be imported into the default group. By default, there is already a default group there. You'll get a pop-up saying that import completed. And once it's imported, you can hit the next button and the wizard is complete. Once it's complete, you can then go to the main view and see your cameras. It's that simple. Almost as simple as the phone app. The only difference is you have to manually type in the ID. That's the only difference.
Okay, so this is the main interface of this CMS software. As you can see on the left, you have your devices. If you have multiple DVRs, you will see the devices on your device list. And at the same time, you can drop down into each DVR and pick and choose which channels you want displayed on your main live view. And how many cameras can you see on the screen at the same time?
So you can do up to 128 different cameras on one screen. It doesn't actually go by DVRs, it goes by channels. So the different DVRs you have, depending on how many channels you want on the screen, you can pick and choose which ones you want. We'll go over that a little later on, actually how to do that.
Is there a limitation to how many DVRs you can remote view from the central management software?
No, there's not. It is channel, it goes by channels.
Okay. On this main menu, you'll see a couple of buttons on the bottom. You have your full screen view. You have your snapshot button. You can take pictures of the videos. You have a manual fast forward and manual playback. And you have your sound configuration.
So from this menu, we can do a remote configuration. Now, this is very important because this enables you to configure multiple DVRs, different DVRs from a remote location. If you're an installer and you have a bunch of different customers, something's wrong with their DVR, you need to go in, you're able to do it from the central management software by doing the remote configuration.
You have a question here.
Yeah, the question is, can channel selection for recording or on the main display be auto-selected based on motion?
It works a little different than it would your typical DVR setup with the record schedule. We'll be going over that in a little while on how to actually do that. But yes, you can. To answer your question, yes, you can.
Okay,
Thank you for that question.
Thanks for that question.
So as you can see here inside the remote configuration, you have most of the configurations you would have inside the DVR itself. You can do about 85–90% of any configurations within the remote configuration settings. Reason being, it's only 85–90% is because of security reasons. You know, you don't want someone going in there being able to wipe out the hard drive in case there's information you might need. You want to only be able to do that at the actual DVR. But moving on, this is our display, and this will be the initial screen you see. Within there, the most important is our record schedule. You can set up the record schedule. It's a little different from our previous versions, but you can see here it is the same layout. It is a highlight select interface, and of course you have the three colors: green, yellow, and red. You don't see, that's the alarm recording, but you just set along the 24-hour timeline and the day you want to do it along with the camera, and if you want to copy to all, you're able to do that.
Make sure that you don't overlap your motion and 24/7 recording.
Yes, very important. And so you might ask, why would we be able to do that? Why is it there if we shouldn't be doing that? Reason being, you can use the motion setting as a bookmark. So if you want to do 24/7 recording and just know when motion happened, you're able to do that. As you can see in the second line, you'll have a 24 hours of recording, and motion will show up along that, stating there was motion on that day or time. Your mainstream, you can set up your mainstream from this window. 4 boxes: the resolution, frames per second, bit rate, and I want to point out, it's very important, there's 2 places to set the audio in the CMS as well as the DVR. But one of them is here in the record schedule under mainstream. So note that, and I'll show you where the second one is in a second. So our next tab is the network settings. Real important. We set these settings prior to the DVR leaving our warehouse. When you get it, these settings do not need to be changed. They're set up already for QuickConnect. If you make these changes, be sure that you do know what it is that you're doing when you make the changes. If not, you will interrupt the QuickConnect function. So try to leave these as they are. So as I said a second ago, this is the second place you will enable the audio function. If you want to use audio over the net, you have to enable it in the mainstream and substream, which is inside network. Also enable video, frames per second, and bit rate in this section as well.
We have a question. What is substream?
Good question, Ken. So substream is the stream that most likely you'll be using over the internet. On our DVR app, by default, substream comes up. A lot of people say, well, why is the substream come up? Because the mainstream requires more bandwidth. Substream is going to require you to have less bandwidth, cost less money. Doesn't mean you can't access the mainstream from your mobile app. Of course you can. But by default, it is the substream. So this is an important setting to set in your DVR when looking at your cameras mobile.
If the user is in an area where they have fast internet connection or Wi-Fi, it's advisable to go to mainstream.
Oh yeah.
Stream, because you can see the best picture quality possible. However, if they're remote or on 3G or even LTE, they might want to switch to substream, or it already comes default in substream, just so the video can stream smoother.
Correct. Yeah. And not only that, some people have limits on their bandwidth. You don't want to, raise the bill on your bandwidth if you have a limit. So moving on, the email setup. We've had email prior to all of our other DVRs and CMSs. We have changed a few things, and I'll go over them in a second. But this is pretty important. Email notification, you want to know if something's going on when you're not there, and you want to be notified about that. This is where you'll set it up. RTSP. I'm going to talk a little bit about RTSP. This is a setting and configuration option that allows you to stream video, embedded video, through a website or from a server. It's not something you could just access within the snap of a finger. And this needs to be set up. It does require a little bit of advanced configuration settings and have someone who knows what they're doing when setting this up. But this function is usually with an IP camera or IP system. It's pretty exciting to have it on a DVR. Home automation uses a lot of RTSP feeds. So this is pretty exciting to have on our DVRs now.
This is something that we added recently to our Angelo HD 1080p models.
Correct. So FTP, File Transfer Protocol. This is going to allow you to transfer files, in this case video or picture files, MPEGs, JMPEGs, to a either remote or local storage on the network. Not exactly on the PC, but somewhere on the network where you can store files other than the PC that you're using. So this is a cool feature. It's pretty important in terms of someone steals the DVR or happens to steal the CMS that you have the computer on, you know that somewhere else on that network you're going to have files backed up. I also want to spend a little bit of time on this section here, motion. We get a lot of calls on setting this up. This section does not need to be changed or configured unless you want to deal with sensitivity of the motion, if you want to set a certain area of the motion, or if you want to enable the email function. Other than that, you don't really want to mess with this setting too much. A lot of people do copy to all, and what that means in this area is that you're going to copy channel 1's recordings to every channel. So you get motion on channel 1, all the channels will receive that motion.
Well, this is where you pick your motion area on the channel, right?
Correct, correct. And that's another good point to emphasize, that if you do copy all and you select a certain area, it's going to copy channel once to every single channel.
We do have a question here. Is the motion setting an include or exclude area? Can you have both?
It is in, so it's the red area, actually. The part that has the red highlighted is the area that will be detecting motion. I understand what you're saying. Like in our IP cameras, you can do an include or exclude, meaning you could swap it. You want the red area to not be the part that detects motion. So in this, no, we can't do an include or exclude. It's just the highlighted area.
How does the motion sensitivity work? I know it's got a number between 1 to 5.
Yes, so 5 or 8 actually. 8 being the most sensitive, 1 being the least sensitive. And the way motion works on a DVR is it is pixel movement. It detects pixel movement, indicating that there was motion. So sometimes, you know, on a hot day when you get a mirage, that can have an effect on the motion, or wind, shadow moving throughout the day can have an effect on motion. It is a pixel detected motion device. So keep that in mind when you're setting your motion up.
And you can enable full screen?
Yes, which would be check all. Oh, so the full screen here is when motion is detected, it's going to automatically go to that camera and display full screen. So if you have it in 8-channel mode, it'll just detect the 1 channel on motion.
We get this question a lot. If there's motion, will the channel blow up to a full screen view? Yes.
Yes.
By enabling full screen on the motion settings.
Yes.
Alarm out.
And, well, we do have another question here. I see post-recording. Is there also a pre-option?
Yes, there is. It's found in the main initial setting. There is so the latch time would be post. Pre-record by default is 10 seconds. So you can change that up to 30. Yeah. Answer your question, yes.
Thank you for that question.
Could you please explain alarm out and the buzzer?
Sure. So alarm out and the buzzer, this is for a device that has anywhere from 4 to 12 volts that will trigger an alarm. It will only trigger when that voltage is either stopped or increased inside the DVR. And it works much like the motion detection, where you can record 1 through 8 channels. Also be careful here when copying to all, because this will enable channel 1s to do all the channels if you do a copy all here. It also has a latch time. And the buzzer, you actually hear the DVR make a noise similar to when you detach a channel from the DVR. You'll hear that noise enable. This is where you would enable, disable that setting.
Yeah, we have another question here. Is there a soft trigger or on-screen button for the alarm, or is it only by motion?
So it's not only by motion, like I just said, it's by motion as well as a 4 to 12 volt device. Those are the 2 ways to set it. Other than that, you can just set a manual record. There's no soft button on the actual DVR or the software to set the alarm off. No.
How to manually trigger the on-off?
Like I just said, there's no manual trigger. You can do it from the device, either unplug it or plug it in to give it a voltage increase or decrease. That'll set it off for testing purposes. Other than that, there is no manual alarm motion.
That's a great question. Moving on. So what Mike was saying about motion areas is just be careful when you copy and select to all. Make sure that your videos are recording the right channels when they're on motion detection.
Correct.
Okay, so the next up is the hard drive and device information on the menu.
So as I mentioned earlier, you cannot format a hard drive from the CMS. This just gives you brief details on how much time you have left, how big the hard drive is, and its status. You cannot do any configurations to the hard drive from the CMS.
There's another question here. Could you use a motion detector with built-in relay?
Yeah, of course. That's a very good question. You can use a PIR device or any kind of motion detection device that will set an alarm off.
Okay, so moving on to hard drive, so you can actually see how much recording time your DVR can still have, right?
Yes, yes. So if you have, a couple gigs left, it'll tell you to the right how many hours that will equivalent to.
And what is the maximum hard drive capacity in both the 720 and 1080p Angelo DVR models?
So our 720 has a 4 terabyte max. Our 1080s can actually have, our 16 channel can actually have 2 6 terabyte hard drives equaling 12 terabytes. That's a lot of space you can put into one device.
Right, and one thing we want to note is that if you're using a 1080p DVR, it eats way more storage than your traditional 960H or your 720p DVRs.
Correct.
PTZ controls.
PTZ control is very important. You can control the PTZ. You don't need a controller. You can actually use the CMS software to move the PTZ zoom, do all of your pencil zoom functions. You have your Pelco protocols, bandwidth, baud rate, and just basic functions of your PTZ.
One brand new feature that we added into our new DVRs is cloud support. Our DVR models actually support Dropbox.
Yeah,
as a way to store screenshots instead of an email notification.
Yeah, so we're working to expand our cloud storage ability. Right now it's just Dropbox, and it does do images, still images of triggered alarms. Instead of having to go to your email, you can have it go to a Dropbox, which is also another security backup function, feature of our hard drive, of our DVRs.
So how does this benefit the user? Instead of turning on your email notification and have a barrage of emails going into your phones or images into your phone, you can just enable this and have all your screenshots go to your Dropbox account for you to access from anywhere, phone apps, Dropbox website, and a few other ways.
Correct.
What is time trigger on the cloud support?
So on the cloud support, you can go anywhere from a minute up to 5 minutes.
Of screenshots.
Of screenshots. Correct.
And motion detection?
Motion detection as well as, so it's motion detection and the alarm triggers that will send the images. As you can see in the picture, it has motion detection disabled or enabled, because maybe you might not want motion, you just want the triggered alarms. You're able to do that through this menu.
Very cool. All right, moving on to system settings on the CMS.
So system settings. This is another, it may not seem too important, but here you can set the time to your DVR. Now, when the time is a major issue that we have with our DVRs, they're all around the country. So, of course, we don't set the time because there's different time zones. This is where you need to make sure that you set the time correctly according to your time zone, because that has a major factor on the record of the DVR. So if the time's not right, you go back to look for a certain time, certain date, it's not going to be there. Make sure that the time, year, month, date is all correct when these are being installed.
But it's important if you're an integrator, before you leave the DVR with the user, to make sure that the time is correct. We've gotten calls saying, oh, I can't find my videos. Turns out that the time is incorrect on the DVR, meaning your video recordings are going to be pushed back to wherever incorrect time your DVR is set on.
Correct.
We have a question here. Does the PTZ control speak Pelco's coaxitron do the coax to their cameras?
So that's a very, very good question. We actually have a coaxitron converter. So you can hook that up past the DVR to control the Pelco C function. There's
under the protocol, there's no option for Pelco C or coaxitron. However, if you're using an old Pelco coaxitron PTZ, we do have a coaxitron converter that will convert that Pelco C to Pelco D, which these DVRs will communicate with. So back to system. On price, we'll get with you as far as price of the coaxitron converter.
So also in the system, you can also set the daylight saving time, and you can enable the NTP, which is a server that actually allows you to set the time to a world time, wherever it is you might be. So users, a lot of customers call in saying, how do I set the users? How do I set the user groups? How do I change certain functions that a user can use? This is where you would do it. It's very simple. Everything's click. You can type in your passwords. Everything's so easy to use here rather than the DVR. A lot of the functions and features that are on the CMS are easier to use in the actual DVR. So I do recommend that you push the CMS to be used to customers rather than actually using the DVR, because it's a lot more simpler and easier to go through.
And you have up to how many users?
So up to 6 users, and the password, our DVRs do 6 characters. I know it says 8 there, but 6 is the limit of numbers or letters you can have in a password. Also, in the info section, this is a very important part of this CMS, because it allows you to take that sticker off of your DVR, peel it off for security reasons. You don't want anybody just walking by scanning that QR code. This menu allows you to keep the number stored away inside the DVR and not have it open to the public.
So the very bottom right here, you'll see P2P ID. That is the device ID of that unit.
Correct. So in the advanced tab, you see firmware updates. This is another very important part of the CMS because you can do remote firmware updates. We don't have many firmware updates for our DVRs, but in the fact that we do, you're able to do it remotely. This is big time for installers. When there's a firmware update, they don't have to go to the customer to actually install the firmware. They can do it from wherever they are, their office or any remote location.
So we do announce firmware updates through our monthly bulletin. If you guys are not subscribed, please subscribe to our monthly bulletin. Next up.
So load defaults. What does that mean? This means you can load defaults for any of these menus. Go back to the default factory setting. It allows you to do all of them or individual ones. A lot of times the recorder, we have a lot of calls about this. In the schedule, the record schedule, they'll set up a motion and the DVR doesn't take it right away. It'll still be in 24/7 recording. So we always recommend that you go into the load defaults and check everything except for network because you don't want to mess up your network since you're doing it remotely. Check everything. It'll put it back to default and then redo the record schedule. This will fix that problem 99% of the time. So it's pretty important you know about this menu. So events. We talked a little bit earlier about alarm triggers and the CMS making noise. This here allows you to set different event types. Disk full, network loss, camera loss, motion detection. It'll give you a buzzer and a sound that goes along with that alarm.
And it keeps a history of events that happen in any DVR.
Yes, it does.
Maintain.
So last on this particular tab would be maintain. So this is going to allow you to set a restart once a week, twice a week, any day that you feel the DVR should be restarted. As any computer device, it's good to restart at least once a week to just refresh its memory and any kind of bugs that are in it. It'll get rid of them and start new. You get a whole fresh memory setting.
So that's it for the menus on the main interface of the DVR. Let's jump into remote playback, how to play back videos, how to back up videos, etc.
Right, so it also comes with a CMS player, and the way you would access your files would be through your computer locally. And it's different from local playback. You can have files saved on the PC that's running the CMS, and you would enable them through this menu here. So as you can see on the top, you have captured images and captured video. Once you select those two options, you'll get the pop-up of the video player. So as I said, there's local playback. That would be for files that you actually recorded to the CMS. So you'll find that at the bottom of the control panel. And then there's remote playback, which is files that are found on the actual DVR that you're logging into. There's a big difference. So remote playback.
So this is the interface for remote playback. Very simple interface. You have your devices again to your left. You have a calendar on the bottom. You'll see where there's videos, and there's a timeline view where you can, flip to different times of the day and actually, scroll through the videos just like you're streaming, a video online.
Yeah. So let's go through on how to actually do this remote playback. So we have a 4-screen view. And you can change that. It's simpler to do a 4-screen because you're streaming the video that you're viewing on the remote playback. We put 8 or 16 channels up there. It's going to take a lot longer to go through that video. But it's very simple, just like our DVR is. It's a timeline interface. You select the cameras. I want to point out, you can see the second box, file type. A lot of times we get customers that call and say, I don't see no video. There's nothing there. I selected the time. I selected the cameras. I don't see anything. The file type will be on continuous by default. You want to change that to all. Once you select all, you'll see on the calendar the little orange triangle appear. Go ahead and hit the play button, and you will see the timelines light up. And you'll see that here we actually have motion on the top line, and the rest are 24/7 recording.
So their color-coded motion is yellow, green is 24/7.
Correct, and alarm would be red. We don't have any alarm trigger set, so we don't see that, but yeah.
Can you do simultaneous playback?
Yes, you can. There's a check mark right below the file type that allow you to do so.
How many channels
So
simultaneous?
you can do, just like the live main view, you can do 128, but that's going to take a whole day to get a second in. So we recommend do four at a time. One, really, if you know what channel it is.
And the controls on the playback?
Yeah, so the first square, you see the controls, basic controls like a regular DVR, DVD player, play, pause, stop, forward. But the more important controls would be to the right of that. The little magnifying glass is to zoom in, which is a very important function feature of HD over coax. You can zoom in after the recording. You can take a snapshot, which is the second icon. The record will actually let you record the remote playback live to your CMS. The audio is enabled, and the most important is the download icon, the last icon. A lot of people want to know, how do I back that up? I can view it. How do I save that? That's the last icon. So once you click the last icon, you will get a menu with the times that you've set up in 1 hour, 30-minute, 45-minute intervals, the size, and you select along the left is the check mark, and then download that video. It'll go to an area that you set up. We'll go over that in a bit on how to set up the path of the download.
One question, Mike. Can you dump big chunks of files into your a local hard drive at where the CMS is installed in?
Correct, you can. So as you can see on the left, you can check mark the times that you want. If you select all, you can select all of them, 24-hour period if you want. And it also gives you file size, so you can do the math of how much time you have left on your hard drive. Will you fit all that information?
Right. Another question we have here, if you have more than one camera with audio enabled, are you going to hear all the cameras' audio at the same time?
No. So if you see the first screen or the first box, it's highlighted in yellow with a slight border around it. As you select through the different channels, you'll see that they highlight. You will hear the sound from that highlighted channel.
Another question, when you back up a file from the CMS, does it save, if it's a 1080p, is it going to save it in a 1080p resolution?
So it's going to save to whatever streams you set. Your first stream one, you always want to have your best stream 1080p. So if it's set up for that, yeah, it's going to record 1080.
Okay. So like I said, the DVRs can support analog, 720 and 1080. So whichever resolution your cameras are and that your DVR is recording, it will retain the same resolution.
Right. So system configuration. This is where, like I said a moment ago, you're going to set up your paths of where you want this video to be saved. And it's found in two places, under File, System Configuration, and also in the Control Panel, System Configuration. And this is what it looks like. Your General tab, of course, has language, log information. I think Ken mentioned earlier that it logs all the different alarms and triggers that go off, or anything, any problems you have that go on, it'll log it. File is what we're main concerned with. You can see here we have the start path of download files, saving path of download files, also saving path of pictures. You can change that to anywhere on the PC that you want. By default, it is under C drive, users, username, and then surveillance client, the name of the CMS, and the actual folder of pictures or video.
And the record type, that's a huge feature. In the past generations of H.264 DVRs, when you back up, they save as .264 files. In turn, you would need to use software to convert that to AVI. In this case, using the software and even on the DVR unit itself, correct, now, you can directly save them as AVI files.
Correct. Our previous version of the same software did not have this option. So we put it in this latest version. It's very important. A lot of times, H.264 is downloaded. We get calls saying, how do I watch this video? How do I take this video to the police or wherever it has to go?
Having it saved as an AVI will enable you to play the video with most multimedia players.
Correct. And it's a simple drop down. You select AVI, and it changes the download file type of the files that you're saving. And you can also set the size of megabytes you want to save as. So last on this menu is the alarm sound. We have a lot of customers calling, how do I turn this annoying sound off? It's a very annoying beeping sound. You can change that to any sound you want as long as it's a WAV file. If most of you are not familiar with WAV file types, that's the file type that's on a CD before you turn it to an MP3. So it's an uncompressed audio file. And you can change it to anything you like as long as it's a WAV file.
Another underutilized feature in the Bolide CMS is EMAPS. What is EMAPS? You can actually upload a JPEG image of, let's say in this case, a floor plan and position cameras on the picture as if you're replicating where the cameras are installed and what field of view they're facing.
Good. And you can see in this picture, what the EMAPS actually does is when an alarm is triggered, it'll give you a preview window of that actual alarm, what it sees. You'll get the beep, the noise, you'll get the camera on the map start to flash, and then you'll get the pop-up preview window. So we'll tell you, there's alarm here, this is what I see. Pretty cool feature, and it is underused. Like Ken said, this feature is really, really cool. You don't find it in a lot of other software out there.
Very cool. That's an EMAP function. Next up.
So group device management. We went over this in the beginning when the wizard opens up. This is the second window you see. So it looks pretty familiar. I went over it earlier. Just want to go over each button that's in the control panel. So we went through this. It looks familiar to you. I just wanted to show you really quick what you see when you click that button. So alarm configuration management. We talked a bit. Someone asked a question on if we can set up the alarms for individual cameras on different DVRs. This is where you will do it. To the left, you will see the group devices. If that expands, you'll see all the different DVRs. You select the cameras just like you would in a playback or main view setting. The triggers that you want to trigger, trigger capture, trigger recording, trigger pop-up, or trigger the actual alarm sound, and the length of time that you want that to happen. And you can see you can do that for motion, for video loss, or for input-output alarm devices. Local log search. We talked about earlier about the software logging any kind of alarms or detections that happen within the software. This is where you'll find those files. You'll search here, you select the type that you want to look for. You can do all, you can do certain types like alarm, video loss, camera loss, signal loss, and they will appear in this area.
That records all kinds of activities.
All kinds of activities for multiple DVRs.
So next up will be how to manage your files that are recorded either in the local storage of where the CMS is or in the DVR.
Correct. So file management. Files are saved or recorded. We talked about you can record on a remote playback. You can record that to your actual CMS computer. That's different from downloading the whole video. So they'll be saved in this area. You can search, like I said earlier, to the DVR from the left, and they will appear here, and you can select, it'll go straight to that video. So this is local record management, aside from remote. In local record management, you can set up not only where you want to save it, but what you are recording. So like the question was asked, can we do multiple DVRs? This is where you would set that up. It has its own record management section as well as its own record schedule, separate from the remote configuration on the DVR in the main view. Also, we went over a little bit account management. Now this is for the CMS. We went over it doing the remote settings, logging into the DVR. This is for the actual CMS. So you can set users to the CMS as well as the DVR. It's another level of security, multiple users, multiple groups.
And one benefit that I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar is a benefits. You're able to access and control multiple DVRs on the software. So how do we do that? We'll go with it right now.
So you can see in this image that we have 3 DVRs selected. The first DVR on top is showing 2 channels from its DVR. The next one below is showing 1 channel, and the one below that is also showing 1 channel. So we have 3 DVRs on 1 screen, reviewing 4 different channels on 1 screen.
You didn't see my.
So how was that done?
Like my,
you can change the layout of your DVR.
One where I said that's my intro into.
2 buttons on the bottom look very similar. The first button is a full screen, so that'll take away the whole left side and give you
and then it goes into the camera.
But the button right next to it is the layout.
All right, I got it open. What's up?
One question here, Mike. Is this new CMS software backwards compatible with older Bolide DVR generations?
Yes, any Bolide DVR that has a QR code on it with our QuickConnect function will work with this CMS.
Okay, so it will work with it.
Yes.
Trying to get more as I go along.
And like I said earlier, that second button will let you change the view of your CMS main view. You can see all the squares there. You can tell each one of those squares with a camera.
That is the top selling moving thing that is going
on the left, I have all the cameras from my first DVR being showed, as well as all the cameras from my last DVR being showed. Very small, very hard to see, but you're able to do it. You can do, like I said, up to 128 different views of multiple DVRs.
We have another question here, Mike. What is my minimum requirements for me to be able to use this CMS software on my computer?
So minimum requirements are very, very light. Any PC running Windows 7, even XP, will be able to do this. You don't need a lot of memory since you're accessing a remote DVR. Now, recording and playback is a little different. You're going to need at least 1 gig of RAM to be able to view these images. Of course, pictures, you don't really require much, but it's very light on the PC or the server that you might be using.
Does having the 1080p resolution affect your minimum requirements for a PC?
It does. It does affect that. Nowadays, it's not too often that we see an older computer that can't handle this software. And I think in the 2 years, I've maybe seen one that could not handle the CMS software.
I'll be a very old computer.
Yeah.
What about Macs?
So yeah, we talked a little bit about Macs. A good question. We talked a little bit about Macs earlier. For the most part, Macs are pretty good with video, pretty good with images. That's what they're made for. The only problem, it's not really a problem, but the only thing that differs the two is that the QR code can't be used on a Mac. You have to use an actual IP address. And we're working to get that fixed with Mac, and hopefully we'll have it done soon.
There's a question here. Can the software be installed on 2 or more PCs under the same license?
You can have as many computers have the software as possible. Now, logging in to the actual DVR, that's different. You can run it, the software on as many as PCs. You can have the DVR on as many PCs as you want. But logging in, that's where you have limitations.
How many users can log on to the same DVR at the same time?
So you can have 3 users log on to 1 DVR at a time. You can have multiple users log on to different DVRs, but 3 users on 1 DVR at a time.
Will that slow down your stream?
It will, because now you have multiple people accessing one feed.
They have to worry about upload speed as well, right?
Correct. Correct. So you got 3 people tying up, 5 megs upload. You've got to now divvy that between 3 people instead of 1.
Very cool. Having the ability to control multiple DVRs is huge.
Yes, it is.
And lastly, let's go over EVI generator.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about downloading the files in the H.264 format. It happens. So in that case, we have an AVI generator. It's also on the CD. It's on our website. Very simple to use. You click the open button, navigate to the file, and what you want to save it as, or actually where you want to save it You go to File Directory, input the information, hit Start, and almost as quick as you hit Start, that file will be done. It'll become an AVI file.
So this is if you didn't save your files as an AVI, it's 264.
Correct. So
Good.
this comes on the CD. This is separate from the CMS. But the reason why we put it into this webinar is because it's pretty important on files that are H.264 and need to be viewed. You can also do AVI, but if you have AVI, you really wouldn't need this. So you just put it in there because it can be done. But this is mostly for H.264 files that have already been downloaded and you need to view.
Okay, that covers the central management software. Again, guys, if you guys want to see the software themselves, they're available by download. We can send them to you. Is it available on the website?
It's also available on our website. Yes, under software, firmware, and downloads in the download software section.
And feel free to try it out, install it in your computer, and go ahead, and we have live demos of cameras as well that are online that you can easily upload onto your CMS at home or office, and check out how it works.
Correct. Yeah. We also have so we have a website now instead of our older demo list. They'll have everything available to you. Simple click to take you straight to where you need to go. Really user friendly. So we're going to make sure to get all you guys to look at our demos and view the cameras live.
So that covers the webinars. A lot of benefits in using our CMS software. Again, you control your DVR remotely. You control multiple DVRs, and as we've seen through going over the menus, it's very simple, very straightforward, a user-friendly interface.
So if we have any questions or comments up to this point, go ahead, type them in, and we can get those answered. But other than that, we'd like to really thank you for taking the time to listen to this webinar. Here's our information. If you would like to get more detailed information, you can give us a call. You can also visit our website. And this webinar will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. So if you need to get back and get some information from the webinar, go ahead and type in Bolide Technology Group North America, and we will upload this video once the session is over. We also have a Twitter account if you'd like to follow us there and get more information and updates about our products.
Again, thank you guys for joining us on today's webinar. We appreciate your time. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us anytime.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.